My name's Mike and I'm just about to head off into the middle of nowhere for 5 to 6 weeks, surviving mostly on bush tucker.
Meet Outback Mike. He is a former Australian Air Force pilot and survival instructor who is nowadays on solo adventures. He loves putting himself in danger and in places where hardly anyone dares to go.
Right there, I can see like that. Canoe.
In Australia, a story has been told by generations about an English sailor, James Morrill. He built a vessel from a shipwreck in the middle of the water and successfully survived 42 days and saved 6 more people besides himself. After reaching the coast, James Morrill then spent 17 years with Aboriginal people. Mike wanted to experience the survival journey of his hero, so he decided to build a dugout canoe in his backyard first. Before the mid-19th century, canoes were used worldwide for fishing and navigating across waters. Almost every civilization has built some sort of canoe to navigate across waters. In fact, the oldest canoe that has been discovered is 8,000 years old. It is called the Dufuna canoe, which has been preserved for the museum in Africa. From Japan to the Americas, these small vessels have been built and called by different names. The most basic type of canoe is the dugout canoe, which is built by hollowing a log. Mike spent over a year carving out this dugout canoe from a 4-ton log. Due to the COVID-19 lockdown, he has been working 5 to 7 days a week on this project. His first challenge was to have a suitable log that could offer enough buoyancy and lightweightness to deal with the real challenges of water expeditions. Interestingly, a farmer gifted him this 16-foot long and 3-foot diameter log of Norfolk pine tree. But Mike has never built a canoe before, and like his hero, James Morrill, he does not want to follow any design plan. So he heavily relied on gut feelings and survival techniques throughout this project.
And I'm not following any plans. The general concept behind why I'm building this is to place myself in the historic situation of a shipwreck survivor in the Great Barrier Reef.
But what happens when the canoe cracks start becoming larger day after day? Will his beeswax filler bear the splash of water? And how will he deal with challenges posed by wood-eater insects and the environment? And, most importantly, will he be able to sail, or will his 14 months of hard work devastatingly sink into the water? Let's find out. But before that, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Since Mike had no experience building a canoe before, he decided to build a 1.5-meter-long canoe as a prototype. It helped him understand the basic design of a canoe and how it works. When the log arrived in his backyard, Mike knew where to start working on it. He picked up his axe and started removing the bark from the log. After that, the log must be hollowed from the center as much as possible. To do this, Mike used the same tools that James Morrill had on the shipwreck. But Mike realizes that it would take 3 to 4 more years to do so. Therefore, using some power tools, such as chainsaws, would save time. He uses a power saw to make a cut and removes that part with an axe. At any shipwreck, one cannot have any measuring tools, so Mike made his own with bamboo sticks. These tools enabled him to shape that log into a canoe. A typical canoe consists of 2 sharp edges. The front part is called the bow, whereas the rear is known as the stern deck. Both edges are built in this aerodynamic shape, so the canoe can effectively make its way through the water. To do so, Michael takes measure of the log with his bamboo scales and a rope tied straight between both edges. He marks where cuts are to be made and starts chopping off the extra wood bit by bit. Due to rain, Mike has to remove water from the dugout, but he also realizes that some worms have been making a 1-inch bore in his log. This may cause the canoe to break, crack, and have a shorter lifespan. To get rid of those worms without using any chemicals, Mike lets fire under the wood in a controlled manner. This traditional method proves effective for killing the worms, but leaves some burns on the wood. However, a well-managed fire also helps the wood dry out and enhances a process known as polymerization, in which the natural liquid inside the wood hardens and reinforces its cellular structure. Birds and insects also help Mike remove the woodworms, but when Mike turns over the log, he realizes there are more holes. Traditional canoe makers had an extensive understanding of wood materials. They recognized that the direction of the wood grain had a considerable influence on the ease of cutting and the canoe's overall strength. Michael pays close attention to the wood grain when carving with an axe. He tries to ensure that each cut aligns with the grain rather than against it. His axe technique is controlled and rhythmic, swinging in precise arcs. But what happens when you do not follow?
So you can see here I've made a bit of a mistake. The grain goes down on an angle like this, so when I cut it in this way, it breaks up like this and breaks away. I really should have been cutting it from the other direction, like that. So as you go along the log, the grain goes up and down like that. You've got to keep checking so you don't have this kind of problem.
Like its front and back, a canoe has a rib-like protrusion on the underside, which is known as the keel. It helps the canoe track straight through the water. Mike also proceeds with the delicate shape and refining of the canoe's hull. It demands careful attention to ensure that the canoe's walls are uniformly thick, which is critical for balance and longevity. The thickness varies somewhat, with the keel being thicker to withstand abrasion from shallow waters and objects. After carving out the rough shape, it is time to smoothen the exterior of the canoe. A smooth surface receives less drag from fluids around, which results in better maneuverability for a canoe. To give it a smooth surface, Mike holds its axe at an angle. In this way, the axe scraps off the wood rather than chopping it. But it also requires a sharp blade. So, Mike had to sharpen his axe and other cutting tools several times every day. However, none of the tools can beat a sharp knife when it comes to surface smoothing.
I found a knife, a really sharp knife, just works even better than an electric plane or anything to provide a nice smooth surface.
Gunnels are the walls of a canoe, stretching from the hull to a few feet above. These walls keep the water outside. However, making symmetrical gunnels without any standard measurement is a challenge in itself. An unsymmetrical shape will distribute water unevenly. If one side of the canoe is larger or shaped differently than the other, this would create unequal resistance, which would force it to suddenly change direction. It may result in the turning over of the canoe. Mike accepts that an adze transforms rugged wood into a seamless surface. Using this tool also gives precision in scraping off the wood, which enabled Mike to smooth sensitive areas of the canoe, including the bow, stern, and gunnels. Now, the log started transforming into a boat, but a new problem arose. The wood starts cracking due to direct sunlight, which dries out the wood and causes cracking. It is not just sunlight, but the dry southern wind aids in drying the wood. Mike knows cracks can compromise the canoe's structure, leading to water leaks if not treated properly. To avoid more cracks, Mike starts covering his canoe with a tarp or cover after working. But covering the wood not only avoids dry wind and sunlight, but also makes the environment feasible for slime to grow. To deal with this problem, Mike sprays salt water on the canoe. It kills slime, but at the same time keeps the humidity in the wood. But what to do with the cracks that are already there? We will find out when the canoe will be in the last stage of construction. But now it is time to make a rope from hibiscus trees. For centuries, Aboriginal people have been making rope with this technique. They also use it for hunting dugongs. All you need to do is cut the log of a hibiscus tree, remove its bark layer by layer, tie up a set of the obtained bark with a stick, and start rolling its threads. A rope can be doubled to increase its strength. According to Mike, his rope can bear around 300 kilos of weight. But where will Mike use this rope? To add additional features to the canoe, Mike makes several attachment points. On the front of the canoe, he makes a hole and fills it with round wood. It will help him anchor his canoe offshore. Whether a canoe is anchored or not, it can easily tip into the sea without outriggers. Outriggers stabilize the canoe and increase its buoyancy. While crafting outriggers, Mike makes sure that these will have enough buoyancy to float him if a crocodile tries to hijack the canoe. But before mounting outriggers and other additional sections, he takes his canoe into a swimming pool to test its buoyancy and lightweightness. Water starts coming into the canoe through cracks, but Mike is determined to fix them after the integration of outriggers with the canoe. In order to make the outrigger frame capable of withstanding the harsh waves of the sea, he makes wood-locking joints on both the canoe and the outriggers. This technique is known as joinery, and it has been widely used by carpenters, canoe makers, and other woodworkers since ancient times. Mike makes cuts and several-inch bores on the canoe and the outriggers after crafting several logs to fit and interlock on them. He also mounts them to ensure firm joints. Now, the canoe is ready to float, but it requires a steering system to control its direction in the water. Typically, pedals are used for this purpose, but as Mike is going to live on the boat, he needs something that can steer the canoe effortlessly. A rudder is a flat plane that is adjusted vertically in a specific position to steer boats, ships, and even airplanes. Mike builds a rudder for his canoe. Just like the front part of the canoe, Mike makes holes in the rear side to install the rudder. He also develops a handle system so that he can easily control and set the rudder in a specific direction. Now that the steering system of the canoe is ready, it is time to build the engine for it. For thousands of years, mankind has been sailing into the wind. Sail is not just a flat sheet of cloth. It is curved, similar to a wing, and air moves quicker over the top side of the curved part than on the bottom. Mike wanted to use a piece of cloth from an actual old ship. He found this ship, which belonged to Sally. Not only does Sally give him the canvas cloth, but she also teaches him how, in the old days, maritime people used to sew it by hand.
You have the line, your rope between you and the sail. And you go around a strand and into the canvas as straight as you can, unless for some reason you want to take up more canvas or take up less.
And sorry, what's that?
A roping palm.
Mike uses natural fiber and needles to repair the sailcloth. It took just time to patch up the holes on the tattered canvas, while construction of the mast proved to be more challenging. The mast is a tall, upright post that holds the sail of the vessel. Typically, masts are fixed permanently, but Mike wants to shoot his journey with drones. Thus, a removable mast and sail system serves him the best. However, this is not enough. The sail should also be lightweight for easy handling. Mike had no idea how to use the heavy bamboo, which he used for building the sail structure. To lighten its weight, he cuts unnecessary parts of bamboo, replaces some bamboo with lighter ones, and rebuilds a smaller sail.
I had to readjust the sails and undo them and resew them a fair bit just to get the sails to hang straight, which is important for efficiency.
Finally, everything is ready except the canoe, which is still porous due to joint holes and cracks. Aboriginal people have been using honey as filler for wood cracks, but Mike prefers honey wax over honey since it is a better sealant and works as a glue as well. He chews the wax and fills it into the cracks.
That's it for the leak. Quite a few bees in this one. I'll probably mix this stuff up with some grass as well. Make it a little bit stronger.
Lastly, he added more planks to the canoe to add strength to the canoe and cover its dugout part. He creates a drill tool that allows him to drill on those planks.
I use it in particular when I need to drill a hole in the end of some timber so it doesn't split when I drive the nail in. Other times I'm just needing to drill holes to lace string through, various little things like that.
As these planks are rigidly hard and cannot be bent for the curvature side of the canoe, Mike has to make many chop lines on them. This technique gives additional flexibility to planks. From removing bark to final finishing, it has been more than a year. Mike is still working on the canoe, perfecting it as much as he can. He makes sure the hatches he made can lock correctly so that his stuff remains inside the canoe, even if the sea rolls it over. Now, the time has reached to test the dugout canoe in real water. Looks like it is ready to sail, so is Mike. He is going to navigate more than 1,500 kilometers on this canoe. Big lizards and surviving challenges are waiting for him.
So right now I'm practicing poling. Is the water that's come in, so I really hope you can come with me on the journey.
Mike has not built just this canoe. His straw hat is also a masterpiece. He made it from the leaves of pandanus. Pandanus is a palm-like tree, largely found in tropical and subtropical regions, but its leaves contain spikes, so Mike wears his leather gloves. He first selects a suitable leaf with a wider width. Then he cuts off the spikes on both sides by sliding his knife smoothly along the leaf. After that, the leaf is ready to be cut off from the tree. Mike then wears it on his head like a ring or crown. He made 2 such rings and then tied them together with a leaf. It works like the frame of the hat. Now, Mike needs a bunch of more leaves to complete the full hat. One by one, he folds a leaf in a V shape and passes it between both rings. While doing so, he also ties them in an X pattern. It takes a while to complete this stage. Now, it is time to flatten them by putting them on the ground and forcing them against it. It is now more like a hat, but more leaves need to be tied to the outer ring to fill the gaps. The hat is ready, so the extra leaves can be cut off. The hat is pretty heavy, but with time, the leaves dry out and eventually lose their weight. With that, we end this video. Make sure to check out his channel, Outback Mike. Also, don't forget to subscribe to ours and give this video a like. We will see you next time.